This is him, Grandmaster Ronald Stone, bringing you another podcast from the USA Hapkido Union. I want to thank you for joining us. We've been talking lately, in the last couple of podcasts, about what makes a good instructor and how to be a good instructor. And so I think we'll title today's podcast, Put on a Happy Face. And I think it's important to remember that attitude when you're an instructor is very important. And so when you enter the dojang, you've got to figure out a way to get rid of your anxieties, your anger, your depression before you get on the mat and start teaching. Now, we've all had a bad day, and I've been doing this. I've been in the martial arts since I was 18, 1970, so that'll give you an idea of the math and how much of a dinosaur I actually am. That's a lot of years walking in and out of dojangs, and a lot of years getting on and off the mat, and a lot of years teaching. And I will tell you that as strong and resilient as martial artists are, we're human, and we have good days and we have bad days. The problem is, nothing will ruin a student's education or willingness to participate than an instructor who portrays an attitude of anxiety, depression, being tired, not wanting to be there. You have to get in front of that group as an instructor, and you have to have an attitude of, this is great, this is fun, this is challenging, this is exciting. And believe me, I understand how hard that can be to do sometimes when you've had a bad day. But you have to put on a happy face. Now, one thing that helps is, of course, the uniform. Now, I'll tell you a little story. As a veterinarian years ago, my mentor explained to me that when you go into surgery and you gown up, meaning you put on your sterile surgical gown, your gloves, you got the mask on, you got your surgical cap and your booties, and you're all ready to go, that process is not just about sterility. That's very important. But it's also a mental preparation, almost like the knights of old, when they're putting on their armor, they're preparing to joust, they're preparing to do battle. So when you go into that dojang and you start to put on your dobak, you start to tie your belt, let that be an on-off switch to a different attitude. Because when you get up there to instruct, you have to instill in your students an enthusiasm that you have, and you have to pass that on to them. As I said, you get up there and you act like this is boring, this is repetitive, this is tiring, I could be doing something else. Then why would I learn from a guy like that, or a gal? I mean, it's just not something a student wants to feel or hear. So that's one reason why I also feel that uniforms are so important, because they're not just a way of exercising without, getting your t-shirt ripped. They are that. I mean, a martial arts uniform is appropriate for the physical exercise and the physical routine you're doing, but it's also a symbol of respect. And if you doubt that, then look at how much more impressive a Marine in full dress blues is compared to a Marine in dirty dungarees. Now, the Marine in dirty dungarees deserves all of our respect and admiration. But psychologically, you see that same exact person in full dress blues on a parade ground, and it's so much more impressive. You see a policeman walking towards you in full uniform, shiny badge, cap, outfit, clean, everything, and that's going to command much more respect than an undercover cop with tattoos all up and down his body, jumping out with gang clothing, a biker outfit on. He's equally deserving of respect once you know who he is. But your first impression is totally different when you see someone in a proper uniform. So let that routine of getting into your martial arts uniform and tying that belt correctly and neatly and evenly be a psychological on-off switch to put on a happy face. It is that important, and that's another reason why I and many other legitimate long-term grandmasters really have a problem with people putting master uniforms or fourth dan uniforms on white belts. Oh, look how impressive it is to be wearing a white dobak with these cool black diamonds all over them. Or, oh, look, I'm wearing a black and red diamond uniform and I'm a green belt. That's stolen valor. I'm sorry, but to me, it's as bad as any other type of impersonation, as any other type of quackery. It's just totally inappropriate. When you put that uniform on, you should be proud, and you should want to pass on that tradition to your students underneath you. And so let that be a combination of, one, your physical attitude, and two, your mental preparation and your mental attitude, and tie them all together. When you walk into that dojo, you may be experiencing anger displacement. And for those of you who don't know what that is or haven't experienced it, we all have. But anger displacement is when you take out something that bothered you on someone else. For example, let's say you had a bad day at work, you didn't get the bonus you expected, you didn't make as much money as you thought you were, whatever, and you've got all these anxieties, and you're upset, and you're angry about the bad day financially. And the first thing that happens when you walk in the door is your wife says, oh, by the way, the refrigerator is going, and I think we need to buy a new refrigerator. And you lay into her like the Allies landing on Normandy. It's just not appropriate. But you can't help it. You're angry and you're mad. Or you may be working, as has happened to almost all of us, and someone walks in the door and you stick out a hand, you give them a smile, and you say, hello, good afternoon, how are you doing? And right off the bat, they're angry, and they're taking it out on you. Well, maybe on the way there, somebody cut them off and was rude to them, made a rude gesture, or bashed their car, or the husband yelled at him, or the wife was, cheating on him. Things that happen in people's lives that make them angry, and so they take it out on you. Well, we're all human, and that happens to all of us. But when you walk in the door of your dojo as an instructor, you have a responsibility to put all that behind you and focus at the task at hand, which is being an inspiring and knowledgeable and happy instructor, teacher, mentor. So remember, when you start putting on your dobak and tying that belt, remember to mentally say to yourself, put on a happy face and be enthusiastic. And I can tell you from personal experience that I've had long days in surgery, and I've had long days at work, and I've had trying days at home, and I don't even know how I managed to drag myself to get to the dojo. And I walk in the door and I take a deep breath and I put on my dobak and I get up on the mat, and by the time you're finished with your exercise warm-up, you're a whole new person. Why? Because your exercise takes your breathing to a whole new level. It improves your blood flow, and you mentally are forgetting everything else and concentrating on the task at hand, which is the martial arts. So if you want to be a good martial arts instructor, just kind of remember those tips. Put on a happy face, enjoy what you're doing, and be an inspiration, not a drag. Thank you for listening to my ramblings, and as always, this is Ron Stone, and thank you for joining us.